So welcome everyone to PoetryEast. Welcome to the London Buddhist Centre, especially welcome to Charles Eisenstein. I'm really delighted that Charles will come. I wrote to him in a kind of fit of enthusiasm. I'd listened to his what's it called? Not a headspace, what's it called? TED Talk, that's it, don't worry. I'd listened to his TED Talk and I was just immediately like, I want to talk to that man. That was my immediate response. And I searched Charles Eisenstein contact, and very, very kindly, he got back to me very quickly and said, well, I'm not sure. Wouldn't it be better if you interviewed these other people? And I was saying, no, you're definitely the person I want to interview. So I'm really, really delighted to interview Charles Eisenstein. He's, many of you will know this book, The Ascent of Humanity, this beautifully written, very careful book, the Ascent of Humanity. So I'm going to be drawing from that. I'm going to be drawing from Climate, a New Story, and I'm going to be drawing from The More Beautiful World Our Heart Knows Is Possible. And of course, many of you will have listened to Charles on, so a friend of mine said to me recently, he's all over YouTube. So you're all over YouTube, Charles. So I hope other people have been listening to Charles on YouTube. So welcome, Charles. Really good to see you. Thank you for tuning in.
Maitreyabandhu, it's really great to be here with you. I'm glad I said yes already.
Good. That's good. That's good. So I thought we'd just sort of plunge in with something, a bit not controversial, but I wanted to sort of start from the top, as it were. So one of the things that you say, I think in The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible, you say that our civilization is facing a phase of transition, a transition from an old story that you've called the story of separation to a new story, which you've used the language of interbeing. You've also used the idea of the age of reunion. So we're in your thinking, we're in this sort of transition between this old story and this new story. Now, I wondered, where do we sit with that now in this present moment? I'm, like we all are, anyone watching this is very aware that still in the middle of this COVID pandemic and all the issues that have arisen out of that, even the polarizations that have arisen out of that, people very careful, other people being, oh, you don't need to be careful, all kinds of views even about that. And then, of course, along with that, we've had the killing of George Floyd, and then the focusing, because of that, of Black Lives Matter. And that's been in the US, but it's also been in the UK. Then, of course, over here in the UK, here I am in the London Buddhist Centre in Bethnal Green in London. I was very shocked by the events in Washington surrounding Biden's inauguration. It seems in a way dark times. So where does your story of this phase of transition from a story of separation to an age of reunion, where are we in that story just now, do you think?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think a lot of people have this sense that some big change is afoot. It would be nice if the change were just going to happen to us and like this big transition is going to come in and rescue us from our current situation. But I think it's actually more that in a process of breakdown, we are repeatedly invited personally and collectively to step into what I call a different story, which basically means a different worldview, a different identity, a different understanding of who am I, of what's real, of what is my life for, what are human beings for? Why are we here on this earth? And how do I do this thing called life? And how do we do this thing called civilization? What's the purpose of it? These are really deep questions. These are foundational questions that are not addressed by merely doing what we've been doing a little bit more cleverly. And I think a lot of people share my view that whether it's the environmental crisis or political crisis or the psychological crisis, health crisis, all of these things, they're not going to just disappear with the next invention or the next improvement. That some fundamental shift is begging to happen. But it doesn't mean it's going to automatically happen because of COVID or because of any external factor. but it's a choice that is presented to us more and more starkly as things fall apart. So part of the story, there has many filaments that weave together. And one of those is that progress, whether collectively or individually, comes through exerting more and more effective control upon the world, which is necessary if we humans are the only conscious agents, the only intelligence in the world, and everything else is random forces acting on generic particles, and it's chaos. But we can impose order where there was chaos. We can impose intelligence where there was randomness, and make the world better, and make ourselves better off, safer, more powerful. We can maximize our benefits, work less, enjoy more pleasure, onward and upward, being freed of these natural forces and the competing other beings out there. Like that's been civilization's view of the road to paradise. And so you asked about COVID, you asked about the political situation. I mean, here we are seeing more and more obviously the failure of control to bring about happiness. So COVID comes, like all of these crises, it's not like everything was just great and now we have some troubles, okay? Like Black Lives Matter, like police killing of Black people, like that didn't just start with George Floyd, right? That's been going on for a very long time. And in fact, is less than it used to be. But it's not that something new started, it's that it has come into public awareness. Health, we like modern societies, especially the US, but to a large extent, Great Britain as well, have been becoming less and less healthy over the last 50 years. Chronic diseases are at unprecedented levels. Mental health, depression, anxiety, suicide, all of these things are getting worse with each generation. It's not like we were getting healthier and healthier and now all of a sudden COVID comes. But so the way that we respond to these crises, it's kind of schizophrenic. It goes in two directions. One is we double down on control. Because here comes, just to speak of COVID, but I could apply this to political issues as well. Here comes COVID, and now here's something that we can control. Like when it comes to autoimmunity, chronic health conditions, depression, it's not like you can find the bad guy and wipe it out or insulate yourself from it. Like if you're suffering from depression, you can't like lock yourself in your room to keep out all the bad spirits that are making you depressed. That'll actually make you more depressed. If you have an autoimmune condition, you can't cleanse your body of germs and get better, like because it's happening within. It's your own self that's confused. So these kind of crises that are not amenable to control are very disturbing to the modern mind. So there was almost a sense of relief when COVID came, because now we know what to do about it. Here's, and so all of these technologies of control are then deployed. Yeah, excuse me, I don't see COVID as like it's almost like a return, like it's almost short-circuited an evolutionary process and brought us back to an earlier orthodoxy in our response to it. But it also is, in a way, it's showing us the destitution of the state to which we have been headed. It shows us with even more clarity what a society based on control and separation looks like. And yeah, I'm wary of going on too long on this one topic. Um, but again, like the Biden inauguration, like Washington D.C. full of military and razor wire, like that whole scene. I mean, that's not the vision of America that we collectively held in 1945 and 1950 and 1960. It wasn't supposed to be this way. These rancorous divisions, the hate, the paralysis, the decay, the civil strife. I mean, something isn't working here. And this is part of the breakdown of the story. It's this feeling something isn't working here. We were supposed to be in paradise by the incredibly futuristic year of 2021. Like, that was science fiction. We were supposed to have, robot servants in space colonies by 1990, I mean, it was supposed to be this technological wonderland where every problem had been engineered out of existence. And so this engineered out of existence, like, what does that actually mean? It means that you apply control on a more and more minute scale and a more and more vast scale. Like, you bring more and more of the world under control, under domestication, under the human intelligence. And you arrange everything to be perfect and just right, just for us. And that program can be maintained only with greater and greater delusion.
I mean, I'm really struck by that, and I've been really struck by very much of what you've said along these lines. I mean, I still keep coming back to this sense of dark times, and I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but there does seem to be more and more polarization in some ways between, the wealthy and the poor, between men and women, sometimes between black and white, certainly between but certainly between the right and the left. And yet, when I read you and when I've listened to you, Charles, one of the things that strikes me, well, two things that strikes me, I think, is your confidence and your optimism. Rather refreshing to have that, both that confidence and optimism. I wonder, can you say where that confidence, even optimism, comes from? Perhaps first in yourself as an instinct, because I think one of the things that's been striking me about your thought is that I think you've got some very, very deep instincts that you're trying to find a way of communicating. So I wonder where that optimism and confidence comes from, your instinct, and where you see it in the world around you.
Yeah. So yes, the confidence and the optimism are not saying everything is going to be fine, we're taken care of by a higher power, the angelic beings are going to swoop in and rescue us from all of our problems. It's not that. It is that we have the power to choose a different world. We are not helpless before the seemingly implacable forces arrayed against change, arrayed against healing. That in the mind that attributes change to force, that mind that says, well, it's obviously impossible. Look at how powerful the banking industry is, the pharmaceutical industry, the military industrial complex, the like white supremacy and patriarchy, et cetera, capitalism. Like, look at how powerful they are. They've got all the guns, they've got all the money, they've got the media, they've got everything. How can we possibly do anything? It's hopeless. That view buys into premises that are actually part of the problem. That change happens when a superior force overcomes a weaker force. My confidence and my optimism is based on experiences and instincts, as you say, that supersede that worldview. And it's partly like, I wouldn't, it's like this instinct that I wouldn't be here if it were impossible. And all of the magnificent people I meet, and all of the generosity and the courage and the beauty of human beings, and of life, it's not here just to go to waste. It's not really rational. I can't say how our society is going to heal. It's just that I know that it's possible. That's why I titled that book, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. Because the mind might not know it's possible. So if you say, okay, Charles, come up with the plan, how's it going to actually work? Any plan that I could propose is going to be full of holes. It's going to, and maybe you've had these moments where you have some reason for hope, but then the inner cynic just eviscerates that hope and points out all the ways it's not going to work. Really, anything worth doing is kind of naive. And that's why I think in that book, I even have a chapter about naivete.
Yeah.
Like, we need a little bit more of it to attempt what the mind says is impossible and to follow that invisible path where and it's not self-delusion. There is such a thing as self-delusion. Like, you have some fantasy and on deep down, you know that it's impossible. But there's also deep down, you know that it is possible and you don't know how to get there. But if there is, and this is what it comes down to, an intelligence beyond our own in the world, not necessarily imposed upon the world by an external divinity, but an intelligence in all things, then we no longer have to be in control of everything in order for positive change to happen. We can become participants instead of engineers. We can ally our gifts with the process of healing and listen for what is ours to do, and thereby become part of something that the mind cannot conceive of, something that we can't plan. That's where my optimism lies.
That's very striking. I mean, just going back for a moment, I remember I've listened to another of your podcasts where you were talking about, again, the COVID pandemic, and you were saying it's really shown you that governments and places can make vast, huge changes really, really quickly. The world has seen unprecedented changes in the last year, and you were saying you were using that, I think, if my memory serves me right, to sort of say, look, we could change more than we realize. Is that what you were sort of thinking? But
yeah, it shows us that what we had delimited as possible is much too narrow. Like that if we are in coherence collectively, if human beings are in agreement about what's important, we can make enormous changes very quickly. Like, here we've shut down most international air travel, for example. Like, if you had proposed that in 2019, no one would have said that's possible. Like, no way. That's a totally impractical suggestion. Well, what about a massive shift of agriculture to the neighborhood, like to like the garden level? Like, is that possible to radically change our food supply so that people are growing half their own food in their own plots? If you do the numbers, it's actually possible, but the social changes that would require are enormous. But after COVID, it's no longer so inconceivable that we could do that. I think actually in Russia, as of 2011 at least, it was true. Half of food was grown in small dachas and gardens, in very small plots. Like, you can do that. And that's just one example of maybe how COVID can expand our understanding of what we can do, like what's practical. Like, it is kind of liberating in that way.
Indeed. I want to come back as we go on our conversation. I want to come back to this instinct you have, this thought you have about this intelligence in the world that we could be part of, which doesn't seem to be a divinity, but has something of that. But I want to sort of come back to one of the thoughts that that I've been very struck by in your writing and in your speaking, and I think it's a profound matter that surely needs to sort of affect us all, which is, to put it really simply, how can our actions matter? I think that is a great question now, a profound question, given what we know. And we know some terrible things about the world, even those of us like me who don't know very much about the world. I'm rather sort of immured from it in some ways, but even I know some terrible things about the world. You don't need to look very far. It's easy to despair. It's easy to feel that, well, the little things I do can't possibly matter. My small acts of generosity, my capacity to love, my capacity to serve things. How can that possibly matter? And I think one of the themes deep themes that I see in your work, and it's only one of them, is this question about, given the state of the world, and given the smallness of my own circle of influence, my own life, how do I matter in this world? That seems to me one of the sort of deep themes running through your thought.
Right. Yeah, this digging down layer after layer comes down again to who am I? What is a self? And the modern conception of selfhood is that you are an individual. This is in economics, it's in religion, it's in psychology, biology. You're this, discrete, separate self. And there's outside of you, there's the wind, there's some objects, and there's and how do you make a change in the world? You can push things, you can pull things, you can make a bigger change if you have a powerful machine. You can make an even bigger change if you can compel others to go along with you and obey your orders, for example, carry out your wishes. But in the face of the enormous forces of the universe, you can't do very much. And so suppose you look out at the world and you don't like the political situation. You don't like the extractive industrial, the extractive habits of industrial capitalism. You want to change that. You want to save the Amazon. So how do you do that? You're just one little person. Well, you have to expand your power by maybe getting elected prime minister, becoming president, gaining a huge fortune, so that you're not just one tiny little separate self. You can actually make a big difference. That's how the thinking goes. Or maybe you get a big platform. Maybe you speak to millions of people and compel them. And how do you make them go along with you? Well, maybe you can shame them or scare them or psychologically manipulate them, or at least you somehow have to reach them. Otherwise, you're just in your own little garden and you're not accomplishing very much. So here we have an implicit valorization of the big things out in the world and a devaluing of the intimate realm. So who's more important? Is it the guy who's trying to get elected president, or he's running a big philanthropy and doing big things with all the money that he's made? Or is it the single mother doing her best to fill her children's world with love? And you're like, well, that single mother, very nice. I'm sure it's wonderful, but if she really wanted to be making a difference, she'd put those kids in daycare and get out there and campaign for something. And there's that. So what I noticed is that logic is part of the problem. It's coming from the same place as the world destroying machine comes from, the expansion of our force. And it comes from that other precept that I mentioned, that we are the only intelligence in the world, and the world is a thing, and to be manipulated for good or for ill. So what if we adopt a different view? What if we say that for one thing, we're not a separate self in a world, a mechanical world of force and mass. But in some mysterious way, we're not separate from the world. And what we do on a small level mirrors in both directions what happens on a global level or even a cosmic level. And that somehow any act of compassion or kindness or courage or devotion, as Rupert Sheldrake puts it, generates a morphic field where those things start happening all around the world. Or another way to put it is that any such act it issues a prayer. Like, I'm not discounting, a divinity. Okay, what I'm saying will fit into any religious tradition. It's so you can look at it in terms of prayer, like prayers are hypocritical if you pray for one thing and then act in direct opposition to that thing. Like if I, pray for your health and good fortune, Maitreyabandhu, and then I knock you over the head and take your wallet, but I'm praying for you, like that's not going to be a very powerful prayer. But if I pray for your well-being and then I have an opportunity to act in accordance with that, that reinforces the prayer. So even if I don't pray with my words, but I am in service in whatever situation presents itself to me, in service to life and beauty, I am praying for life and beauty and tugging at the collective, tugging at the world. I'm shifting all beings into that reality. And maybe, I'm sure people listening to this have had experiences where you sense this mysterious connection between belief and reality. It's nothing so simple as your beliefs create your reality, and then you can engineer your beliefs to create. It's not that simple, but it's simply recognizing that inner and outer, self and other, above and below, are intimately related. And that our felt sense of significance when we listen to that intelligence of the heart is valid. That sense of significance is accurate. It's a reliable guide. And what would the world look like if everybody followed that? The impossible would become possible.
I mean, that's really struck me in your thinking. This thinking is only one way of putting it. I also mean your kind of instinct for things is that, because Buddhism would talk about being interconnected, interpenetrating even. Two things occur to me when I've thought about that and reading you, Charles, is firstly that the issue I've seen sometimes when I've met activists, I've had friends tell me they want to change the world, and they seem to be quite willing to ride roughshod over me to get to the world, if you see what I mean. Right. It's like, I want to say to them, I thought I was part of the world, but when people say they want to change the world, it always seems to me a distant metaphor, as if we mean some far-flung place that's different from anything near me. So I see that tendency on one side, and I'm afraid with some of the activists I've met, and I've only met so many, I don't get out that much at the moment, with some of the activists I've met, I've been struck by, well, sometimes a kind of underlying hatred, which doesn't seem to me to be really to do with the cause, although the cause seems to sort of, I don't know, easily provoke it, suggest it. So I've got that on one side, and see what you think of this. And then I've got, on the other side, I've met Buddhists sometimes and spiritual people who I find at times, and I'm sure I've fallen into this myself, have treated this idea just as a way of sort of nuancing consumer choices. So my kind of contribution to the world is to have Oatly instead of cow's milk. I'm going to be vegan. I'm only going to drink eat locally sourced apples, and rather prideful, I think at times, kind of nuancing of consumer choices. And I'm doing a slightly sort of almost superior attitude around that. So I don't know whether you've met those two tendencies, a kind of activist that is kind of wanting to say, well, I want to change the world, and that means I need to drive over you if necessary to get to that world. And then on the other hand, a slightly complacent, slightly quietist thing that can easily go, I think, with a misunderstanding of Buddhism, which is, oh well, I'm saving the world one keep cup at a time. I'm saving the world one Oatly packet at a time. What would you say to those two conflicting thoughts there?
Yeah. Ironically, both of those extremes, which could coexist in the same person, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
And, lest we sound preachy here, probably coexist in you and me as well.
Yes, I was of me anyway.
But interestingly, almost paradoxically, they are the same thing. They are what happens when some other master infiltrates one's service to the world and takes it over. And that other master could be approval seeking, and identity seeking and acceptance. So because of the way that we are brought up in modern society and in a market economy and in the story of separation, people have, generally speaking, a strong and often unmet need to love themselves, for unconditional acceptance, for approval, for acceptance in an in-group, and to identify oneself as being a good and worthy person. So how do you prove that you are good and worthy? Well, it could be through various kinds of activism that gain that approval, that comport with a self-identity as being good. I'm, part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm ethical. What I do is justified. Like there's so many ways to maneuver oneself into one of those positive categories. And it could be through our purchases too. So that can start to dissolve as we orient toward the master of service, service to life, service to beauty. And that, then you run into, how do I know what is really going to help the world? Like suppose you're an Extinction Rebellion activist. I wrote an article about this a year or so ago, you get on the underground and you stop the train, to cut fossil fuels and bring awareness to this problem, and something has to be done right now, and life cannot go on as normal. This is important. Like there's a crusading zeal here. And then this actually happened. Someone on that underground train was like, I have to get to work. Don't you care about me? I'm going to lose my job. And someone's like, how do you know I'm not on my way to the hospital? How do you know that this is what is needed right now? How do you separate that from your identity as a hero? This requires inner work. And this is what, as as a Buddhist, this is not, meditation and practice. It's not just to get yourself into, high states of consciousness to enjoy. It's an alignment with reality that brings everybody in. A lot of evil has been done in this world in the name of saving humanity. Adolf Hitler thought that he was saving humanity from the biggest threat, which was genetic degradation. This was in the early 20th century. Science was almost unanimous. if you were a scientific educated person, you would be concerned about the degradation of the gene pool because unfit people are breeding, and we got to do something about it. And around the world, people were starting to do something about it. Forced sterilization and eugenics programs. And, Hitler just took it to the next extreme. And he was full of righteous zeal. So, yeah, I mean, I could say a lot more about it. I mean, to take it to an extreme, George Orwell wrote about this in 1984 when O'Brien was pretending to recruit Winston and Julia to the Brotherhood, the Revolutionary Brotherhood. And in this famous passage, he says, if it would take down the party, would you be willing to commit sabotage? Yes. Would you be willing to cause the deaths of thousands of people? Yes. Would you, if it helped to bring down the party, would you throw acid in a child's face? Yes. And really revealing them to be no different than the party, which also does everything that it does in the name of the greater good. So this is a call to listen to a different drummer and to radically doubt. And it's not to ignore cause and effect, but it is to radically doubt the abstract constructs that tell us here's what's going to save the world, and to listen to, I mean, it's almost a cliche at this point, but to listen to the heart.
The other thing that you really bring out in many of your writing is this need for humility, and which I really applauded, and this feeling that you have, which I keep coming back to, is this feeling of, and it's difficult to get in touch with, is this feeling that I don't know, I really don't know. And that one of my questions, though, is humility doesn't seem to be something one can do. If people try to do it, it becomes a sort of weird inverted pride and even a kind of power play when people try, it's so often a kind of trick. And yet I think you're right about humility and not knowing. I wondered whether there's more you could say about how can we get into that place of humility and not knowing? Because I do think we need more and more not knowing and more forgiving our sort of mutual sillinesses about thinking we know things.
Yeah, that's a very astute question. It's true that when you pursue humility, usually you end up with a counterfeit that doesn't actually fool people who don't want to be fooled. It only fools yourself in the end. And then you emit what I've heard in Buddhism called the stink of enlightenment. So, yeah, you cannot achieve humility, which should make sense. It's not something that you can achieve. That's actually not humble. It's something that happens as a result of seeing more and more of the reality of who you are and what the world is. It's just a result of seeing truth. And how do you see the truth? For me, usually it's when it's shown to me in ways that I can't ignore, in ways that obliterate my defenses against it. What are my defenses against it? They're the constructs of self. And it also, but it's not that you can't do anything. It also requires a willingness to see what's true and to hold that above anything else. And that is, I think, the foundation of Buddhist meditation practice, where you sit down with a resolve to be in reality, to observe what is. Humility comes from that. And not, it comes from that. It's not that in and of itself, but that resolve, that willingness. Then when things from beyond what you knew come into your view, you accept them. You don't resist them, even though they might disturb and disrupt and dissolve precious identity, precious stories and myths about what the world is. Like it's a letting go.
I mean, some way I think you talk about, and really struck me, is that sometimes the path to humility is humiliation. I don't mean being humiliated by someone in that kind of aggressive way. I mean the humiliations that life brings to you, that shows you that you don't know, that shows you that you were wrong,
Right.
and so on. I don't know whether you would agree with that. That one of the paths to humiliation is humility, is humiliation.
That's how it usually happens for me. And yeah, that's a point I like to make, not only on a personal level, but also on a cultural level. But everyone's experienced it. Like, what exactly is humiliation? It's when a false image dissolves. The image that you had exhibited to others, here's me. And then someone says, hey, I just saw you, when you thought no one was looking, I saw you, stealing something, or I saw you like, and then that image that you may have believed in yourself, it dissolves and you're exposed. Like that, like the fear of humiliation is really the fear of being fully seen for what you actually are. And it's powered to a large extent in this society by conditional, it's this unmet need for unconditional acceptance, unconditional love. It goes back to parenting styles where shame and conditional acceptance is leveraged to control children. This is a huge topic. But then on a cultural level also, the story that Western civilization held of itself as being the pinnacle of human development, charged with the sacred duty of bringing progress and development, civilization to the benighted masses of Africa and Asia and so forth, like this white man's burden, like this whole story. I mean, you think the white man's burden is so 19th century, but it lives on today in the ideology of development and modernization and progress, and the undeveloped countries and the developed countries, and the World Bank, development loans, all this kind of stuff. It's like everyone's going to become like us. We represent the future. Others are not quite as far along toward becoming like us, but we're going to bring them there. That's what progress is. Like, this mindset is still with us, but the humiliation is gathering, because we can no longer say, look at the paradise that we've achieved. You so want to be like us. That is falling apart, and it is humiliating. And it is my wish, like I would even phrase it as a blessing. May we be thoroughly humiliated so that we may become open to solutions to our problems that are from outside of what we thought were the limits of the world, the limits of reality. Because actually all of our problems are easy to solve, but the solutions do not exist in official reality anymore.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because even personal humiliation is very painful. It's I don't know quite why. It's interesting, isn't it? Why it's such a painful experience, and people almost go to absurd lengths. I say people, probably mean me. We'll go to almost absurd lengths to avoid it, and we'll harden up against it. Of course, the other possibility is that culture will harden up against it, and the individual will protect itself against it. I think, again, that can be part of the sort of I'm right, you're wrong, that's happening so much in the world and creating so much polarization. How are we going to help ourselves and culture sort of face that sort of pain and see that as a positive thing?
Yeah. So a lot of the polarization, the I'm right, you're wrong, we're good, they're bad, a lot of that is a result of the breakdown of the story of the people that gives us identity and meaning. When that breaks down, then you can get identity and meaning from your belonging to a political in-group that identifies itself as the good guys and the others as the bad guys. That is a source of meaning. Conspiracy theories are another source of meaning. Oh, I know what's happening now. So a lot of this, both conspiracy theories and not to say that I don't want to dismiss everything that conspiracy theories say as, well, it's just conspiracy theory, because it's used now as a smear against anything that deviates from orthodoxy. Okay, but of course they're not all true either. So anyway, but just saying that here is a way to gain a sense of identity and belonging, and it is so polarization and conspiracy theories, including rigid orthodoxy, are all symptoms of a breakdown of meaning and collective identity. So to undo that, what you were saying is really relevant, that like what makes this painful process bearable of humiliation? So if this rigid polarization is powered by a need for acceptance and belonging, we can undo it in even our individual interactions with people, person to person, on the internet, whatever, by extending unconditional love to these people, to everybody, to seeing each person not as a member of a category, especially a negative category, but as a divine soul. That creates, and to actually see people like that, that makes them feel safe. And it meets the real need that underlies the political identification. And like, yeah, you can try this in your next family gathering, but how to translate that into political culture, that's a much bigger question. It's not necessarily going out there and being really nice, but it is being respectful. It's to keep in mind that no matter whose, Twitter feed or Facebook page you are commenting on, that this person is God in human form. And this person is the same as you are. It is life itself in a particular combination of circumstances. We are life speaking to life. We are life looking at life. We are life. You are life incarnate.
I mean, I really love that. I think that what I feel strongly is that there is nothing higher than person. The person, that you, Charles, or I, or anybody else, that's the miracle of life. I've been reading Marilyn Robinson. I'm a great lover of her novels, and she was saying that we've all got the most miraculous thing in the universe, the human mind. What I fear is a reducing of person to category. Like I'm a gay man, although I never use that language, but I don't want to be reduced to that. I don't. It's not my life. My life is bigger than any category, and I want to be related to as a sort of sovereign individual, a bit like what you're saying about a sort of soul. Is that where you're sort of going with that? A sort of
that's just individual. Full and complete individual. It's kind of mind-blowing to actually see somebody and to realize that they are having a complete experience. Like there's a complete universe in their going on in their mind. Like they are like, and I'm to some extent maybe like a character in their all-encompassing drama. And when I go there, then you become much less of just a character in my drama. Like, wow, you're an actual full subject looking out at me, having an experience that's every bit as visceral as my experience of you.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm. Mm.
That's simply the truth.
Mm.
And in a modern society, we have massive training to deny that truth. Like, our economic lives are pretty much based on getting the best deal, avoiding getting taken advantage of. Like, when you make a purchase, the training and the pressure, and this can be, intense economic pressure. It's you don't think about which of these products was made with less exploitation of human beings. I mean, you might think about that, but you might not even be able to afford to think about that. And you're certainly not encouraged to think about that, because what you see on the screen is the price. You don't see anything else. So this society, as we know it, runs on dehumanization, putting people into categories of consumer, for example, not to mention racist and sexist categories. Like, dehumanization runs the world as we know it. And not just dehumanization, but the reduction of nature, of non-human beings, to less than full beings as well. It's and some people, in a deep meditation experience or a psychedelic experience, might have this knowing as well, that beingness is not only in human beings, but that we're in a world that is thick with beings, overflowing with beings, and with being. And therefore, we're not alone here. That is
That's
just
another thing that struck me about your thought, is that there's this sort of deep vein of sort of animism. I think you want something more than mere appreciation of beauty and mere appreciation of nature. I think you want a sort of resonance, a kind of kinship, a sort of unity, which again is very redolent of Buddhism, really. My own teacher, Sangha, actually, he said that you can't really be a Buddhist at all unless you're first of all an animist. In other words, first of all, you see the world as alive and conscious in some way that perhaps we can never explain.
Yeah, or yes. Ancient cultures, traditional cultures, many of which still exist on Earth, did not see and do not see human beings as the only conscious intelligences here. It's not to say that human consciousness is the same as the consciousness of a tree or a rock or a deer. It's not. But they are not fundamentally devoid of something that is the sole province of human beings. Has been an almost universal understanding among humanity that has only withered in the last few centuries, but well, over a couple thousand years. I mean, this is a whole historical process that has to do with domestication and then Christianity and then science, like this progressive stripping of beingness from anything outside the human being, which ultimately, right? So Christianity used to have like all kinds of holy places and saints, and like the divinity was quite diffuse, and over the centuries it became more and more concentrated. And the division between the holy and the profane more and more rigid, until holiness came to be only in God, Jesus, and the Bible. And then science took it a step further and stripped holiness from everything. And then, in typical fashion, when the monster has devoured everything, and then it turns on itself. So then human beings are stripped of beingness too, and consciousness is reduced to neurochemistry and the random movement of, atoms in a void. So, and that is a wellspring of despair that unconsciously colors anything from activism to the way we live our lives, like this little kernel of despair, like this little grain of plutonium constantly irradiating the psychic body and generating one cancer after another after another. We need to extract that.
I mean, that really leads to me to this question of divinity. I actually like your language of divinity, because one of the things that strikes me, I don't see what you think of this, Charles, but I mean, I wanted to talk to you about, because I think a deep theme in your work is this sense of the meaningfulness of the world, of the meaning of meaning and meaningfulness being integral to human beings, to life itself. One of the things I'm often asked is Buddhism, a religion or not? And you end up with a literalized divinity on one hand, and of course you can easily say, well, it's not. I could easily say it's not that, but I'm also more and more uneasy about the secular, because I think that's part of that stripping of the world. I think the secular has become weirdly a new religion, with its own enforced beliefs. I want something that goes beyond the secular and the divine, and I wondered whether that's something you've been thinking about.
What we call secular is totally a religion. It has metaphysical principles. It has a prescription for how to attain truth called the scientific method. It has a priesthood of scientists. It has a system to indoctrinate the youth. It has ties to money and power, as religions do. It has, its preachers and heretics. I mean, it's totally a religion. It has a system of ritual that we call technology. I've written about that in my climate book. As far as I've become a bit allergic to trying to understand the world by positing a set of first principles about here's what is and here's what is not, to fix reality in that way. And to say, okay, like theological principles, okay, there is no external God, or there is this, there isn't that. Like, that's on a subtle level, that's like the same kind of dominator relationship that is the source of our ecological crisis and our human crisis, domination, control. Like I'm going to intellectually categorize the world. I'm going to order the world into my concepts and reason forth from there and have certainty. So I tend to look at things differently. Like, I can step into a deistic story of the world, and like, who do I become with that? And I'm not asking for certainty. I'm not asking, okay, well, is it real or not? Is it true or not? Is there actually, like, what the hell does actually mean? Actually a God? Like, that's an attempt, like, that is actually drawing on Cartesian intuitions, where either it is or it isn't at a certain point in space and time. The world is way more mysterious than that. It's stupendously, magnificently mysterious. And that's just the truth. And I'm not saying that we can't usefully sometimes abstract principles from and recognize patterns. But let's hold them lightly. It's the same mentality as holding our political identity lightly. Let's not be so rigid right now.
Yes, that's really striking. I think it really chimes. One of my own teachers, he talks about the danger, that the great danger of human beings is literalism. And it's almost like you're saying, let's not be literal about it. Let's take it as for its wonderful suggestive potential, and see where that takes us, rather than this sort of literalism.
Right. Yeah.
I want to carry on with, because another thing you say about this whole matter of my actions matter, and my actions are part of a unified world in ways perhaps we can't understand. You talk about living in the gift, and I'm very struck by that your whole language of living in the gift. I wonder what that's looked like in your life. I wonder even whether you think of yourself as having a faith, a particular faith. What's living in the gift? Well, what is that? Let's perhaps, for people watching, sort of say a little bit about what you mean about living in the gift, and perhaps if you're willing, and to say what that's looked like in your life, and whether does that come down to an idea of faith or non-faith, or are those categories that aren't useful to you?
I could frame it in terms of faith. Faith that the world is intelligent. The universe is intelligent. Faith that God is in all things. For me, though, it really originates more in understanding that life is a gift. I mean, I guess that's the same thing. But for me, it's more just realizing that I have not earned my life. It wasn't through my hard efforts that I was born. It wasn't through my hard efforts that my mother took care of me when I was an infant and nursed me and fed me and kept me safe. And it wasn't through my hard efforts that I earned the sun giving life to the earth, that I earned the presence of water. No. Everything, every breath is a gift. And thanks to the generosity of this universe and to experiences that have come to me to demonstrate this, I have something of an ongoing knowing of this. You might call it faith. Not that I don't forget sometimes, but when I do, I get a reminder. And especially like the people I love, like they're a gift too. Such a gift. These beings that have come to me to love. I didn't create them. So like knowing on a felt level how gifted I am, it's the natural response is gratitude, and then the desire to give forward. That's what I call living in the gift. It's living in the knowledge that everything, including life, has been given to me. Like I'm in an unpayable debt of gratitude. And it doesn't feel like a burdensome debt. It's just simply, it's gratitude, you know, it's a desire. It's a desire. It's not something that needs to be pulled from me, but it's a desire to give in turn. And you know, if you ever if you receive amazing generosity or even witness generosity, you'll find this, that it stirs in you too. Like this is how it works for me anyway. To witness or experience generosity stirs that knowledge in me, and I become more generous. And I feel safe to be generous because I'm like, oh yeah, this is a very giving world. So that's part of living in the gift. And I could talk for many hours about it. I even made an online course about living in the gift and how to apply that to, you know, work and relationships and stuff.
And can you say, was there a moment in your life when that you started to experience that? Because I'm really struck by that thought of living in the gift, and it feels sort of intuitively, emotionally right. And if only one could live by it more. Did that arise to you at a particular moment when you were young, or when you know, or is it something that's gradually sort of opened out to you? Is it something that you're just receptive to? I'm partly thinking of, people watching. How did it happen with you, and how might they, in a simple way, start to open out to that, our gifted nature?
I'm not going to tell my own story so much right now, but just to say, if you want to take that next step, it starts with noticing that what I said is true, that you are gifted with life, and that when you touch that, you're grateful. Like, even to be breathing feels good. Like, why should it feel good? Why should a raspberry taste so good? It wouldn't have to taste that good for you to eat it and to stay alive, but it tastes better than it has to. And why do the birds sing so much? They wouldn't have to sing that much just to mark their territory and find a mate. They're singing all the time. They love to sing. They love to pour forth their beauty. So just to touch the reality of that, it accelerates a process that always wants to happen in you, which is to take the next step into your true nature, which is that you're just like the birds. You're just like the raspberries. You want to give too. And it's like, this is not something to accomplish. It's not something to strive for. Like, don't make it hard on yourself. It's your nature. And it's a paradox to rest in that nature, to acknowledge that nature gives birth to the actions that you would think that you have to strive for. But they become natural. They become an orientation. And it's just, and you'll notice, what is the natural next step? It may not be any heroic change in your career. It might be, but it might be something whatever it is, it'll have the feel of something that you're ready for.
That's great. That's really great. I want to start. I don't want to take too much of your time, Charles. So I want to start to draw our conversation to a close. I suppose there's still one or two more questions I wanted to ask you, if you've got time. I mean, you said there a bit about opening, waiting for seeing what the next step is. I wondered where commitment fits in your thinking. What you're saying there, and I really chime with that, is you're aware of being gifted, and that makes you want to give. You're not in debt in that pejorative sense, but you're gifted. Where is a place of commitment? Because it seems to me that commitment is what shapes us in a certain sort of way. Is that a place for you in your thinking, or?
Yeah. My commitment is to remember. My practice every day is to touch in on what's true, to touch in on the gift, and to touch in on my innate desire and compulsion to give my gifts forward, to do things with devotion. Not because I'm then a good person, or I'm then making some kind of moral or spiritual progress, but because that's who I am. That's what feels good. So the commitment isn't, okay, I'm going to hold myself to that standard. I'm going to accomplish these things that are in line with that. My commitment is to simply remember, is to experience that truth. And then I have the faith that it will be enacted. It's like think this is also an image from Buddhism. When they're talking about the commitment to meditate, and it's like, imagine your child is lost in a crowd and you're looking for your child. Like, you are not going to have to will yourself. As long as you remember that my child is lost, you're not going to have to like fight, with willpower to stop from, wandering off and, playing Tetris. Like, you're going to be on it because this is so overridingly important. Yeah, it's like that. It's like, my commitment is to simply remember, oh, my child is lost, in a sense, like metaphorically. The suffering and beauty of this world is real. And yeah, so the commitment isn't like, at bottom, it's not to find the child. It's to act in accordance with the truth that the child is lost. Because after, maybe the child is lost and you're looking and looking, and then, it's getting dark and you're exhausted and you're not searching effectively anymore. And you've looked everywhere in this area and he's not here. And maybe actually sleep is in service to that. And nourishing yourself is in service to that. And this is not about self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice can sometimes, like, there are moments for self-sacrifice, but there are also, and this is maybe something I really would want to say to young people growing up in a time of where it looks like humans are a burden and a curse on this planet. You will not help the planet by sacrificing yourself. And in fact, the planet, Mother Earth, and the cosmos has given you life. It is a sacred gift. And it's been given you for a reason. What Earth wants is for you to be fully alive. Earth gave you a body so that you can be fully embodied. Earth wants you to accept this gift fully, just like a mother wants you to, doesn't want you to nurse a little less and go hungry a little bit. That is how much Mother Earth loves you, times a million. And this, to fully accept life, to fully accept being here, when you do that, you are the opposite of a burden to this planet. You are a gift to this planet, because in the fullness of life, you're going to be overflowing with gifts to others, with nourishment to others, with inspiration to others, with a contribution of beauty to this world. You're going to be in service to life. You're going to be part of the Gaian mind, whose plan is more and more and more life. The people who are doing harm to this world, it's not because they are selfishly, greedily fulfilling their desires. It's because their real desires are unfulfilled. And so they endlessly hunger for substitutes for their real desires. No one needs a 2,000 square meter mansion. Nobody needs private jets and sports cars and yachts and all that. Those are not actually meeting their needs. Those are proxies. Those are surrogates for something else that they want. So anyway, I just wanted to speak into attention something that is true. This is, again, living in the gift. You are given life, you are given a body, you are given a place in the world. And Earth wants you to accept the gift fully and not throw that gift back in the face of the Creator. To accept that gift fully in the full confidence that the more you accept it, the more of a gift you become. you are a gift to the world, and you know that this is true. And you don't have to sacrifice yourself to be that gift. In fact, it's the opposite. You have to accept life and to know that who you are is someone who wants to pass that gift forward. That's who you are. That's not what you have to overcome yourself to be. It's who you are. So that's what I would say to, I mean, it's not just young people. This is a profound reprogramming of a lot of our cultural teachings.
I mean, it's really striking you saying that, because reading you and listening to you, Charles, I've been thinking about my partner's daughters, Alex, who's 13, and Ria, who's 12. And particularly with Alex, as you get, but by the time you get to 13 and 14 nowadays, there's, I don't know, I see a lot of people at that age and their friends, very, very worried about how they look, easily sort of agonized about their own thoughts. They don't feel like a gift in themselves. And looking around the world, they just see a world that it feels like it's being destroyed on a daily basis in an unimaginable way. And in a way, you've already started saying it, but what would you say to sort of Alex and Ria? What would you say to, I don't know, a 14-year-old girl? What would you say to a 16-year-old? What are they going to do? How can they, well, first of all, how can they come to terms with themselves? I keep noticing with that age group a sort of self-agony that I didn't have when I was that age. I don't remember it. I had my own agonies, but not quite in that same way. I didn't have this sense of the world falling apart and somehow myself being part of the cause of it. There seems to be a new distress. Distress is too slight a word, and a new self-hatred almost, right from very young. People are experiencing depression at much earlier ages. It used to be a middle-aged man's issue. Now it's more and more teenagers are experiencing it. So I thought we'd finish a bit more, if you can say anything more about how would you speak to a 16-year-old boy? How would you speak to how would you try to help them? Because there's a lot of people out there, I know, that are thinking about that.
Yeah. The self-hatred, the self-rejection, the blame of oneself for the problems of the world, this is a displacement of blame or of cause onto a false target that actually maintains the status quo. You have to understand that human beings do things as a result of the circumstances that they are in. But rather than blame the circumstances, we tend to blame ourselves. We tend to blame a moral failure of ourselves. And by doing that, we don't attend to the circumstances and we perpetuate the status quo. So if you find yourself doing bad things, harmful things, maybe, it's the computer that we're using right now, or the cell phone that you're using right now, that is made from rare earth minerals extracted with great pain and suffering from this planet. Or maybe it's some nasty thing you said to somebody. Don't go beating up on yourself. Look to the circumstances, because again, that actually you are a gift here, and you are here, and it is your nature to want to give, to want to serve beauty and life. You know that this is true. So if you're behaving in a way that's not aligned with that, something has happened to interfere with your basic nature. And what is that thing? What is the external or the internal circumstance? What's the programming? What is in need of healing? What hurts? This is a loving approach to yourself. And from that, I can't say what will unfold from that, but at least you're going to be in the truth, rather than the prison of self-judgment, which inevitably accompanies judging others. What's wrong with them? This hatred, This hatred is the problem. Earth did not create you as a contemptible being. You're not the exception to the perfection of nature. Every species comes to Earth for the same reason, which is to increase the livingness, the complexity, and the interrelatedness of all beings, of life on Earth. The first protozoa, the first flowering plants, like they made the Earth more alive. They brought life to places where there hadn't been life before. Humans are the same. That's why we are here. Now we've been having some growing pains. We've been in a stage where, as a civilization, we have not been serving life, we've been destroying life. We are now coming to a coming of age initiation, an ordeal even. And we're ready to grow up. And if you are 13, 14, 16, you're the next generation. You are going to take that growing up to its next level. And simply what that means is that you know that you are here to serve life. And it's important. And the way to do that, be skeptical of the prescribed ways that have been handed down to you as received knowledge about how the world works and what's important. Even like climate change, as it is narrated to you. The world does not work as a gigantic machine. Everything is important. Even the things that the generations preceding you have said are not important. Those are important. They may not be so visible. They may not earn you applause and celebration, but they're important. Your heart knows what's important. It could be big and visible. It could be small. The small things, the invisible things, the humble things, the things that don't go viral, the things that don't win you a big platform, that are not celebrated, those are the most powerful. They don't substitute for social and political and ecological engagement, but they set the pattern for effective engagement. That's the mentality to be in, is any opportunity to serve life and beauty and to enjoy life and beauty, to be here. How could you expect the world to accept your offerings of life and beauty if you don't accept offerings of life and beauty? The world is generous. Life is supposed to be fun, pleasurable, exuberant, wild. And you know it's true. That's all I've got to say.
That's a great place. That's a really, really good place to finish. Thank you very much indeed, Charles. It's really, really good to have this conversation with you. I've been really looking forward to talking to you, and thank you for your contribution, for trying to think about the deepest sort of stories. And I want to go back to thank you again for, I don't know, being willing to say, who am I? What am I here for? What's life for? Those crucial things that so often people sort of forget after they're 9 if they're not careful. I really wanted to thank you for staying with those great questions and having the courage and the tact and the care to find more and more ways of expanding on those great questions. So thank you very much, Charles.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, Maitreyabandhu. I appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for being so gracious. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Really good to see you. Thanks very much, Charles.
Thanks.
Thank you.